All right, so with that, I'm going to go into my Soundtrap account. I'm going to open up the studio. I'm going to create a podcast episode, and I am going to stitch together the podcast right now. So I'm going to add a new track, and I'm going to import the files that I use for every podcast. So I'm going to click Import File. I'm going to go into a special folder that I made just for tonight, and I'm going to pull in my theme song, which is called Endless Possibilities. So there is the podcast theme song. Turn up my volume a little bit. All right, so that's the podcast theme song. And if you remember last week, I need, when my intro starts, I need the volume of that that intro to come down. So I'm going to open up my automation button, click automation and volume. And right here at 5 seconds is where my intro is going to come in. So right there, I'm taking the volume to about half the volume. Then I'm going to close that automation because I can actually see it in the theme song. Next, what I'm going to do is open up my standard introduction and import it in. So right here, it says intro VO. This is what I use for every podcast. I double click, it brings it in, and I'm going to drag that. Remember, hold on, undo there. I'm going to use my little cursor to line up where I start speaking. So let's hear that. Profiles in Teaching with Technology. All right, I want that volume to be a little bit louder, so I'm going to make the volume louder. Let's hear that. I'm going to just nudge this a little bit sooner. Here we go. Profiles in Teaching with Technology is a podcast series. Right, so that's pretty good. I'm just going to move my little automation a little bit sooner. There we go. Next, what I'm going to do is bring in the actual interview. So I'm going to scroll forward, and I'm going to bring in the interview that I did with, actually, I'm not doing that. I'm going to record the introduction to Nick Duff, who is an amazing teacher from Surrey in England. I had the honor of interviewing him last night, and I'm going to record that intro that he sent me. So here's his little bio that he sent me. I'm pulling that up. Again, I'm going to be reading a script. If you remember last week when I was doing it extemporaneously, I didn't do such a good job. So I've got the script ready to go. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hit record. Let me make sure that I have my microphone all set up. Let me go in here and say, you know what I'm also going to do is put on my headphones, right? Always a good idea to turn on the headphones. And that will allow me to record without having any feedback. Nothing will happen in my ears. So I'm going to go to MIDI settings. Yeah, that sounds good. And I'm going to make sure that my microphone, I'm going to click on add new track. I'm going to say microphone. Yes, I'm going to be using my Blue Snowball. All right. So I'm actually going to make a new track here, solo it so that it's just this one, right? And then I'm going to hit record. I'm going to get that script up, and away I go. Here we go. Following a degree in music and education psychology from Surrey and a PGCE at Kingston, Nick Duff started his teaching career in Surrey, which was where he really learned his craft as a music teacher and became fully involved in all aspects of musical life in the school. It was also here where he had the opportunity to build a music studio from the ground up, standing him in good stead for regenerating technology facilities in his future schools. After working his way up the ranks to head of faculty in an inner-city London school, he has also taken a sideways move to become more closely involved in SEND students, exercising his passion for helping children with special needs and English as an alternative language, whilst breaking down barriers to accessing music. Throughout his career, he has had a firm belief that music exists beyond the classroom and has MD'd over 50 shows, conducting many varied ensembles, and has performed in all the major London venues. 9 years ago, Nick moved to Worlingham School, where he is now head of music. The department is now thriving with a challenging and adventurous curriculum offer, supported by 3 staff and a large number of Perry staff. Fundamental to his teaching style is a belief that every child can access music and every child has the opportunities to express themselves, enjoy individual and collaborative music making, and succeed in a supportive and safe environment. Nick maintains an active interest in performing and composing himself to maintain and develop his own musicianship. All right, so I did pretty well. I had a couple of little blips and blobs here, but that's going to be what I call good enough for government work. So I am going to pull my script there. I'm going to solo it out, and let's see what this sounds like here. First, let me undo the record. Hopefully you'll be able to hear my sound. Can you just raise your hand if you can hear this? Because I have headphones on. Please visit www.musicfirst.com. There you'll be able to... You can hear that, everybody? Okay, good. Find out about all of our platforms, as well as sign up for a free 30-day trial. Following a degree in music and education psychology from Surrey. Now, I have to say that I think the volume of the music is a little too loud, so I'm actually going to go in and make it even softer. All right, so that is my intro all done. I'm just going to click here to the end to hear how it finishes. Maintains an active interest in performing and composing himself to maintain and develop his own musicianship. Okay, so I'm just going to trim that up a little bit, which means I'm going to just go there. And next thing I'm going to do is actually bring in the recording of Nick's interview. So I'm going to click Add New Track. I'm going to click Import File. I'm going to bring in the actual podcast. So here it is. This is what I recorded last night. All right. And what I'm going to do is go back and see if I can find, hold on, there's a chat. No, Carmelo, I'm not. I'll finish that in a moment, but yeah, very good question. So let me just hear, I'm going to solo this so I can hear Nick, what I said. Thanks again, Nick. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So this week, my friends, all right, so that's where the podcast starts. I'm going to trim it up there. I'm going to bring this here, and I'm going to hear what that sounds like. It looks like I need to bring the volume up on that. All right, here we go. I'm going to unsolo the track. Enjoy individual and collaborative music making and succeed in a supportive and safe environment. Nick maintains an active interest in performing and composing himself to maintain and develop his own musicianship. So this week, my friends, I have a very special guest who's coming up. So what I'm going to do is open up the automation here. I'm going to click and fade it out. And then what I'm going to do in this track, if you remember, we did this last week, I'm going to go to Edit, Split Region, click on this bit here and hit Delete. So now that my theme song fades out, let's hear what that transition sounds like. I'm just going to move that out just a little bit. Here we go. And safe environment. Nick maintains an active interest in performing and composing himself to maintain and develop his own musicianship. So this week, my friends, I have a very special guest who's coming. So I moved that a little bit too much. And now my podcast is going to go all the way down here, right? Oh, oops. This podcast was about 40 minutes long. My conversation with Nick was about 40 minutes long. So I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. All right. And now what I need to do is bring back the theme song. So in this track here, I'm going to find that theme song in my Finder. And because I don't want to import it again and start a whole new track, I'm actually just going to click and drag. So click, drag, and let go. So there's the theme song again. Let's hear the end of the interview.
To the school and see how we use it all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so very much too as well. All the best.
All right, take care. Okay, so the volume, if you remember, I've already put it all the way down. So what I need to do here is click, drag, and bring that volume up, right? And then what I'm going to do is, as soon as the music starts, I'm going to give it a few seconds, and then I'm going to bring in my outro that I do with every single podcast. So here we go. Listen to it from here.
We'll see how we use it all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so very much too as well. All the best.
All right, take care. All right, so that sounds pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is bring up that Finder window again, and I'm going to put the outro in, and I'm going to bring that outro to about here. All right, so maybe a little further. And what I'm going to do is open up that volume tab again, that automation, and I'm going to make 2 dots and bring that volume down. Let's hear what this sounds like. Much, Nick, for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so very much too as well. All the best.
All right, take care. Thank you for listening. So I'm just going to nudge this up a little tiny bit because it was a little too late. There we go. And then right here, I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to fade out. And then I'm going to go up to the track right around here. I'm going to hit that split, edit, split region. I'm going to click on the part I don't want, hit delete. So I now have my completed podcast, and I do this every other week. This is how I make my podcast. Here we go. Much, Nick, for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so very much too as well. All the best.
All right, take care. Thank you for listening to Profiles in Teaching with Technology from Music First. For more information about Music First, please visit www.musicfirst.com. If you would like to stay up to date with other music teachers doing innovative things in their classrooms with technology, please subscribe to our podcast through whatever outlet you listen to podcasts on. Thanks for listening. All right, so the podcast episode is done. I'm just nudging this up a little bit more. I'm all finished. Now what I'm going to do, this is where we got to last week. Now what I'm going to do is label my podcast. So Nick Duff Podcast, okay? And then I'm going to click save. It's going to save that project. I'm going to cross my fingers. So this is a 44-minute podcast. So it takes a little tiny bit to save. There we go. I'm crossing my fingers, make sure everything runs smoothly. And once I've got it saved, that doesn't mean anything. It means that it's saved in Soundtrap. I need to get my podcast out of Soundtrap so that I can put it, so that I can upload it to the podcasting host site, which I'll talk about in a moment. All right, so getting there, 78, 80, almost finished. And we are done. All right, so the podcast is now saved. Now what I need to do is get it out of Soundtrap, export it. Now, I will tell you that Soundtrap, as I was just telling Carmelo right before we started, Soundtrap's been having a lot of difficulties lately. Some of you may have already noticed that. It went down for a while, it wasn't working, and right now there is no export audio function, which is thoroughly annoying. But they put in a download mix button, and I'm going to click that, and that download mix is going to take the Soundtrap file, which is really a proprietary file format, and then put it into an MP3 so that I can use it or upload it to another program. You can't go straight from Soundtrap straight into a podcast hosting site. You have to actually get it out of Soundtrap. I hope that all makes sense. So right now it says it's mixing, and once it's done mixing, it will do what's called mastering. I don't really need to go into that right now. By the way, I mean, you could use GarageBand to do this. You could use Logic, Pro Tools, Audacity, whatever you want. But I'm using Soundtrap. I figured it would be a good thing to show you exactly how I do this. And I make 20 podcasts a year. Here we go. So I'm just killing time. While this is doing, do any of you have questions that you might have? There's one in the chat. Oh, it believes as a WAV file. Okay, thanks, Carmelo. I'm sure you're right. All right, so we're getting close to being finished mixing. And really all it's doing is converting the file to an audio file, and now it's mastering. This should take relatively little bit of time, less time than mixing. Their version of mastering, by the way, is basically what's known in the world of audio as normalizing. So it's making all of the audio about the same volume throughout in terms of yeah, it's just going to be what's called a normalized recording. Okay, would you bring your volume back up after your outro? I didn't, Nicolette. I just faded out. You could. It depends on how important the theme song is to you. For me, it's like, you know what, the podcast is over, so that's why I faded it out. Great question, Nicolette. All right, so I'm almost done getting it out of Soundtrap. So while it's doing this, it's really important, and I'm sure I went over this on the first night of class, but I'll go over it again. The difference between a regular audio file and a podcast is how you post your audio file to the internet. Okay, so that's okay. It's now done. Oh, that's interesting. It rendered it as an Ogg Vorbis. So let's see if I can do this. That's really interesting. By the way, Carmelo, you can. Absolutely, you can. I don't. I don't talk about who the next guest is. To be quite honest, I don't always know who the next guest is, but yes, you can definitely talk about the next episode. For me, it's just something I don't do. Great question. All right, so now what I'm going to do is go to SoundCloud. Now, when you go to SoundCloud, automatically you have the ability to make podcasts, whether you know it or not. I got a SoundCloud account. You can do it with a free account, but when you have a free SoundCloud account, you're limited to the number of tracks that you're allowed to upload. I believe it's 5. If it's not 5, then it's limited to the number of megabytes, the total number of megabytes that your audio files have. So I'll be super clear here. I have a pro account. What that pro account means, so you'll see here under my name, Jim Frankel, Music For, it says Next Pro. What that means is I don't have to worry about how many files I have uploaded. To be honest, my company paid for it. I did not pay for it out of my pocket. If you're going to do this for your school, that's definitely something for the PTA or the administration to cover, not you. But now I'm here. I'm in my SoundCloud account. I'm going to click on the upload button right here, the upload button. I click on upload, and it says, choose a file to upload. Now, it's possible that my Ogg Vorbis file is not going to upload, but let's try. We're going to click choose file to upload. I'm going to go to my desk. I think it was in the downloads. There it is. And will this upload? Yes, it is going to upload, I think. I'm hoping. Okay, so it looks like it's working. I'm really excited about that. I'm now going to go to upload image, because with a podcast, when it shows up on a site like Spotify, which is what I'm going to show you, when it shows up on a site like Spotify, it's always good to have a picture. Now, it could be that you use the same picture for every single episode. What I do with my podcast is I put the person who I'm interviewing, I put their picture. So I'm going to click upload image. I'm going to go to my folder, which has Nick's picture. I'm going to hit upload that. And that is the picture that Nick wants me to use. All right, it's a little dark, but that's good. Now what I'm going to do is click on it says Nick Duff. I'm going to do, I know that it is season 5, so I put S5 and then E17, episode 17. It totally doesn't matter what you call these episodes. I just like having season 5, episode number 17. It just makes it easier to keep track. for the listeners who I have a lot of people that download these podcasts every other week. So when they do that, it tells them, oh, this is Nick Duff, season 5, episode 17. To be honest, I stole that from Netflix when I watch, or The Mandalorian will say season 3, episode 4. That's why I put that there. Okay, so that's number one. It looks like it's uploaded, which is great. It says, what is the genre of this podcast? You don't have to do this, but it's good if somebody's searching. So it's not music really. So I scroll down to audio and I say, this is learning. My podcast should be categorized as a learning podcast. So when people listen to it, they might learn something, okay? Then additional tags. So the additional tags, I use hashtags, right? And I'll put Nick Duff. So that means if anyone, the reason you do this is that if anybody is searching for a podcast on any of these podcast outlets, these are the search terms that you're telling it, look for this. So I'm also going to do music first, right? So those are the two. I'm going to put my own name, Jim Frankel. So if people are searching for me, for Music First or Nick Duff, they'll find the podcast. Again, that's on Spotify, iTunes, whatever you do. So I'm going to also put in music technology. So if people are searching for music technology, they'll find it there. That's what these tags are all for, search terms, okay? And then I'm going to put music education. So those are the 5 tags I always use. The person's name, my company's name, and then the 2 categories, music technology, music education. I hope that makes sense. Description, you can put in a description. To be honest, I don't put them in. But what the description does is if you want to give your listener, before they listen to it, a kind of a condense of like, this is what you're about to listen to, you can put it here. I gotta be honest, I'm lazy. I don't feel like typing a description, so I skip it. The caption, I don't put a caption either, okay? I just leave these blank. What I do very carefully is I say, I'm going to either make this private or I'm going to schedule it. What I do with my guests is I always do schedule it, right? Which means when am I going to, I'm going to submit, this podcast is going to automatically go live at a specific time on a specific day. So right now what I'm doing is I'm looking at my calendar and I know that Nick's podcast is going to go live on Thursday, April 27th. All right. So I always make a podcast ahead of time so that I never feel rushed. So I'm going to click on the calendar and I'm going to say Thursday, April 27th. And I always like releasing my podcast early in the morning. So I do 7 a.m. All right. So just to review, any SoundCloud account could do this. Any SoundCloud account does this. But I'm naming the episode. I'm putting the genre. I'm putting in some search terms. I put in the picture. And now at the bottom, I'm going to click save. All right. So now it's telling me, hey, would you like to go to your track and listen to it? Well, I'll do that. I'll click go to your track. So again, only I can hear it right now, only me. So here we go. Profiles in Teaching with Technology is a podcast series created by Music First, a company dedicated to providing world-class cloud-based tools.
Honda 50 motorbike pushed 9 years ago to a school.
Yes.
Huge financial and emotional investment.
So I'm literally spot checking.
I love
sure it's okay.
Because it can be really and using the technology to create is possible both in the UK and the US.
Bit of content in Focus on Sound. You and the next time over in the UK, when I'm over in the UK, we'll have to get together for a pint or two.
Oh, definitely. You'd be more than welcome to come over as well, to come over to the school and see how we use it all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so very much too as well. All the best.
All right. Take care. All right. So now I have a podcast. It's up on SoundCloud. How on earth do I get it out of SoundCloud? Before I do that, I'm just going to pause for a minute and see if any of you have any questions about what I've shown you so far. Again, what I did is I actually created the podcast in Soundtrap for you. I saved it. I then did what they call mix down or something like that. It's not under the export right now. Right now it's all the way down at the bottom of the file menu. I saved it. I then uploaded it to SoundCloud, which is where I host all of my podcasts. And then I added the title, the picture, and a couple of other things for searching. Hopefully that all makes sense, pretty clear, right? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go into my actual profile, and my profile on SoundCloud shows me all of the tracks that I have. So when I scroll down, you'll see that I have, there's Nick's episode, Nick Duff, season 5, episode 17. This is Amy Black. I recorded her podcast 10 days ago. Amy Black is an educator in Vicenza, Italy, at a Department of Defense school. The podcast that's coming out next week is Tony White, who is an amazing educator at the Los Angeles Unified School District. So yeah, I've got now my episode. Yeah. And I also have what's called a spotlight. The spotlight is whenever anybody comes to SoundCloud specifically to our channel at this, at this URL, they're going to see that Katie Wardrobe's episode is the current episode. This is the one that is right now for 2 weeks all by itself. This is the episode. All right. So now you can see I literally have 18, 19, I've got 3 more podcasts to record this season, and that'll take me all the way to either the very end of May or the very beginning of June. So I got another 20 podcasts in the can. So it should take me up to 100 pretty soon. It's a lot of work. Now I'm going to show you the most important thing about, hey, why is this a podcast, right? Right now, it's just an audio track on SoundCloud. So here is where the secret sauce is. On my account, all the way to the right, I see these 3 dots. I click those 3 dots. The dots always mean more. There's something here. We just don't have enough space to list everything. So at the very bottom, it says settings, one above the sign out. We don't want to sign out. The settings is where everything is. When I click on settings, right, it brings me here and it says, hey, do you want to add all kinds of counts? Blah, blah, blah. But the most important thing is this content. When I click on content, right here is the RSS feed. And this, I think I talked about this the first night of class. This is what makes it a podcast. Really simple syndication. That's what RSS means, really simple syndication. And the reason I'm using SoundCloud is it makes this RSS feed for me automatically. By the way, every other podcast hosting site, and there are lots of them. If you Google, let's do it. I'll Google podcast hosting sites, right? There are tons. These are the top 10, right? Buzzsprout, Podbean, Captivate, Transistor, Castos, Resonate, Libsyn, SoundCloud, right? I personally like SoundCloud because I used to use SoundCloud for other things, for sharing audio. So I already knew SoundCloud, and that's the only reason I chose it. Some podcast host sites are more expensive, some are less expensive, but this is right here the most important thing. Hopefully all that makes sense. That's the RSS feed. So how do we get our podcasts out of SoundCloud and onto sites like Spotify? So here's the URL. Oh, wait, there's a hold on question. I believe that's a great question. Let me go here. Great question, Carmelo. How much does a pro SoundCloud, how much does it cost? So it is $12 a month if you pay for it all at once. That's not super cheap. That's $144, but never pay this out of your own pocket. You have your school pay for it. So that's what SoundCloud Pro is. And again, you may not need SoundCloud Pro. Let's see what this says. They actually have an offer here. Let's see. Next Plus. So here's what so you could use free. You get 3 hours of audio for free. Pretty cool. And you can podcast with this, no problem. But what happens is once you get 3 hours, it won't let you upload anymore. You have to start deleting tracks. And when you delete a track from SoundCloud, it disappears from your podcast channel on Spotify. So that's why I don't need Next. I don't want to do that. Next Plus is you get a little bit more. Okay, so $250 a month. It's still the same amount of hours. So that distribute your, that maybe that's what you need. So for $250 a month, which is what, $30 a year, that's how you get your music on Spotify. This one, I guess you can't do the RSS feed, so you have to pay for it. $250 a month isn't terrible. I believe that's $5 every 2 months, so $30, right? And this is 144, but I use this because unlimited tracks. So I don't have to worry about deleting things. That's why I go to Next Pro. Hopefully that makes sense, answers your question, Carmelo. But it's podcasters.spotify.com. So you need to have a Spotify account. You can have a free account, but podcasters.spotify.com, podcasters.spotify.com. And here's what I did. When I logged in, this wasn't here. When I logged in, it said, would you like to add your podcast? And I clicked yes. And then it said, all right, get started. What is your RSS feed? Now, I'm not going to paste it in here, but that RSS feed is right here. So I copied this. I then went to Spotify and I pasted it there. That's literally what I did. And what Spotify does is it goes to your SoundCloud account and pulls everything from it. So every time you upload a new track, it pulls it to Spotify. So watch this. If I go to my actual Spotify account, open.spotify.com. Okay, there's my Music First channel. Now, the one I just did, Nick Duff, is not going to show up because it's scheduled to go out April 27th. But there is Katie's podcast, and you'll see some of these podcasts have nothing written about them. If the guest wanted me to push a website that they had, I add that. But most of my guests they don't care about adding a website. So anytime you see where it says Jessica is the director of bands, right? Jessica Husselstein, who's an amazing teacher in California. She wanted me to put this in there, so I did. Hopefully that all makes sense. So these are all of the podcasts that I've recorded over the last 5 years. There's a lot of them. And I didn't ever touch anything in Spotify. I do everything in SoundCloud. And automatically that RSS feed, when any new content comes up, it immediately adds it to this channel. All right, so I'm going to stop and ask if there are any questions.